Time for an appointment.
C is now told in a new report detailing the systematic rape of thousands of women and children. Good morning, America. I'm Joan London.
And I'm Mike Schneider in for Charlie Gibson. Begin the week, Monday, the 11th day of January, 1993. There is a new investigation by the European community, and it's confirming some of the most gruesome reports that we've long been hearing about this war in Bosnia. Evidence that rape has become a weapon, not just a byproduct of this war. This morning, we're going to get a first-hand report on this widespread tragedy. Spencer?
Well, Mike, it's been a lopsided winter so far, with way above normal snowfall out west and far below normal snowfall in the east. So far, Squaw Valley, California, 250 inches of snow to date, while New York City, only 2 inches. And once again this weekend, brought more snow to the west, as seen here in Durango, Colorado. And we'll give you the details in just a moment.
A whole lot of enough white stuff, though, to make it a pretty picture out there this morning. A little
Beautiful
dangerous,
picture.
a little treacherous.
That's right.
Also, I had a conversation with a British journalist who knew President-elect Bill Clinton during his days as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford. Well, now he's going to be White House correspondent for a London newspaper, writing about the man with whom he once studied. Also this morning, the man who ran the budget books during the Reagan administration, former budget director David Stockman, he's going to have some advice for Mr. Clinton's new budget director designate. Right now, though, Lisa McCree of ABC's overnight news program, World News Now, has the news of the day. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning, Joan. Morning, everyone. Iraq seems determined to push the U.S. and the UN to the limit as 150 more Iraqis crossed the border with Kuwait this morning and began dismantling warehouses. That's in direct violation of the UN Security Council rules. It is the second big raid across the border in as many days. Yesterday morning, as many as 500 Iraqis crossed the border just south of a place called Qasr and grabbed a stockpile of weapons, including at least 4 Silkworm missiles. The weapons left in Kuwaiti territory at the end of the Gulf War were being guarded by unarmed United Nations personnel. There was a confrontation, and while no one was hurt, a UN spokesman called the raid a very serious incident. Meanwhile, in Baghdad, there were protests yesterday, also aimed at the UN. ABC's Jim Laurie has more from Baghdad.
A march through the streets of Baghdad, typical of the kind of well-organized demonstrations staged by the Iraqi government. UN, lift the flight embargo, they chanted today. The marchers, employees of Iraq's tourism and air travel industry, which has been grounded by a United Nations ban ever since the Gulf War.
We want to call the UN to lift the air block from Iraq.
It's very humiliating, having Iraq Airways sitting on the ground doing nothing. It's been almost 2 years now.
The demand's coming as Iraq refused to allow UN planes carrying UN personnel on normal weapons inspection missions from landing in Iraq. Iraq says the UN should from now on either use Iraqi planes or travel by road to Baghdad. But of the more serious provocations today against UN operations, the Iraqi propaganda machine remains silent. Iraqi television last night broadcast a report on Saddam Hussein's meeting with his Revolutionary Command Council and members of his Ba'ath political party. His spokesman again denied that Iraq has bowed to Western demands to remove anti-aircraft missile batteries. We have deployed our defenses where we want, he said, but there have been no reports of the Iraqi raid on the arms cache across the border in Kuwait. Saddam Hussein continues to play a cat-and-mouse game of challenging the U.S. and UN resolutions wherever he can. As to the cross-border raid, when they choose to comment, if they do, the rigidly controlled propaganda machine here will no doubt insist that the raid was on territory which for 2 years they have claimed as Iraqi. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Baghdad.
In Somalia, American Marines were on a weapons raid sweeping through Mogadishu's gun market. ABC's Bob Zelnick says the arms merchants may have been tipped off.
900 Marines moved into positions around the Bakara market in West Mogadishu just after dawn. They sought to cripple one of the largest weapons markets in the capital, and one whose clients are mostly street hoodlums rather than factions or clans. Trucks told residents the targets were arms traders, not individual citizens. Helicopters warned gun merchants not to resist. Intelligence teams sought information from local residents.
The folks on the street are very supportive of this. They don't want these heavy weapons in their city. They've been, in some cases, years without a decent night's sleep.
After trudging through street stalls teeming with the smell of garbage and fresh-killed goat meat, the Marines came upon a warehouse where weapons were stored. The weapons inside were confiscated, boxes of ammunition, machine gun rounds, and an assortment of guns and rifles. But at first glance, the haul appeared to be modest. That and the failure to trap many of the gun merchants suggests they may have known the raid was coming. Whatever the success of this particular raid, it emphasizes that U.S. forces here want to make the weapons trade a high-cost, high-risk business. Only when Somalia's gunmen conclude there must be a better way to make a living will this society start to rebound. Bob Zelnick, ABC News, Mogadishu.
In Geneva, 2 days of peace talks on Bosnia have produced little progress on ending the bloodshed there. But on the other hand, the warring sides are still talking, still debating a UN plan for dividing Bosnia into ethnic regions. And a key player in that conflict, Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic, joined the conference this morning. Milosevic said he is optimistic about the talks. Britain's Prince Charles had to cancel plans to visit the Shetland Islands because of bad weather. Hurricane-force winds have stopped all efforts to deal with that wrecked tanker Brer. Islanders suffering from inhaling wind-blown oil have been given face masks. Police in Palatine, Illinois are sifting the trash bins and combing the parking lot of Brown's Chicken and Pasta restaurant. They're looking for clues in that weekend mass murder of the owners of a restaurant and 4 of their employees. Police have questioned a former employee who was recently fired, but say, as of yet, they have no suspects. Inauguration Day is fast approaching. Just a week from Wednesday, Bill Clinton and Al Gore will take over the White House. Yesterday, the inaugural event planners held a parade dress rehearsal. They're working on the timing of the big procession, and they're probably hoping the weather will be a little bit better for the real thing. Hillary and Tipper stand-ins were brought in to practice the presidential wave. The party planners also announced that a giant firework representation of Bill Clinton playing the saxophone will light up the sky over D.C. on Inauguration Night. In sports, the 2 NFL playoff games yesterday had very little suspense. In Dallas, Emmitt Smith rushed for 114 yards on 25 carries, scored this touchdown as Dallas beat Philadelphia easily, 34-10. Dallas plays San Francisco next week for the trip to the Super Bowl. And in Miami, Dan Marino completed 17 passes, 2 of them touchdowns to Keith Jackson, as Miami beat San Diego 31-0. Miami plays Buffalo next week in the AFC title game. The Super Bowl just 3 weeks from yesterday. That's the news till now. Now for the weather and other things, we go to Mike and Spencer.
All right, Lisa, thanks a lot. Before we go to the weather, though, I'll just sit here and dwell on those Dolphins.
Mr. Miami, he's going to gloat.
Yeah. We have a decade-long thing going over the Dolphins and the Jets, and we won't talk too much about the Jets, will we?
The Jets haven't even gotten off the ground. They should call themselves the New York Helicopters.
You got off the ground, and you actually are back here live in the studio.
Back in the studio. Can you believe it? Not on the road? Is that incredible? Amazing.
Give him a day or two.
Let me show you what's going on. Oh, before I go to the maps, we have some video to show you from Durango, Colorado, I might mention. Heavy snow pounded Durango, Colorado for the 4 days in a row. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
10 minutes after. Thank you, Spencer. Since the dawn of time, rape has been a tragic byproduct of battle, but now it has actually become a prime weapon of war in what was once called Yugoslavia. Reports now confirmed by a European community investigation reveal that Serbian soldiers are systematically raping Bosnian and Croatian women and children as part of a planned military maneuver. Now, the idea is to drive Bosnians and Croatians out of their homeland in what the Serbs call ethnic cleansing. Joining us is Felice Guerre, a board member on the International League for Human Rights and who recently returned from Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Charlotte Bunch, director of the Center for Women's Global Leadership at Rutgers University. Thank you both for joining us. This report says that 20,000 women have been raped by Serbian fighters as a part of a deliberate plan to destroy the Muslim community and carry out what they call ethnic cleansing. You were there, you've talked to a lot of people. Can you tell us what ethnic cleansing is?
Ethnic cleansing is a pattern to drive, as you said, people out of their homes, but to terrorize them first so that the Serbians can create ethnically pure areas where only Serbs live. And it's a heinous abuse that's been likened to genocide by the United Nations.
It is always a horrible crime, rape, but in this case, it is being perpetrated in order to destroy the family unit, right? The community and the family unit.
Yes, I think there's a particular element in which the idea is to dishonor these women and in a sense destroy them for life. And I think this is particularly important in the context of a Muslim society where the notion of honor is very tied to the sexual life of the women.
Yes, and with the Muslims, as I understand it, there are severe consequences for going outside the marriage, and in fact, she is, it's hands-off, so that when this happens, she could, I mean, if we look at the long-term consequences of this, be really pushed out of the community by her own people.
This is true, and I think it's also important to see that this has happened in the past, historically, in particular with the war of Pakistan against Bangladesh. There was also a systematic use of rape to dishonor and to humiliate the women of that community. And the women were often made pariahs by the culture, even though the government attempted not to make this happen and tried to say these were heroines of the War of Independence in Bangladesh.
Well, one can only guess how they're going to handle this down the line, but when you think about the long-term consequences, they are not only raped, but as I understand reading through this report, is that they're held in these camps in many cases long enough to make sure that they are impregnated.
This is a particularly depraved form of use of rape as a form of terror. The women are being told not only that they must stay there, but that they must bear Chetnik children. Chetnik is the word for Serb fighters from World War II. And so you have all the humiliation and degradation of rape in and of itself. Then you add to it that these women are being forced to stay until they bear a child. And when they are allowed out, or if they escape from the camps, they come into a society, very often to Croatia, which has no facilities and, in fact, believes that abortion is wrong. So they are unable to deal with the consequences of that.
But you wonder what's going to happen to these women and to these children as well. And there are a lot of women, I believe, from what I'm getting, that are unaccounted for. I mean, a lot, like 15,000 women or so. We don't know whether they're being held somewhere or whether they've been killed.
There have been allegations that a whole generation of young Croatian women are missing. The data on that is not clear, and the Croatian government has begun a study of that.
There are some peace talks obviously going on, but I don't get a sense that this is part of those peace talks.
Well, I think it hasn't been part of the peace talks. I think one of the reasons that many of us are concerned to bring this issue into the public is to make sure that this does become a part of the peace talks. And in fact, in the last month or so, there's been much more conversation in the international community about the rape of Bosnian women as a part of the war crimes of this particular war, so that there is now a growing demand that in both the peace talks and in discussion of the UN holding some kind of accountability for these crimes, that this be recognized as one of the major tactics of this war. And I think in future wars as well, that we begin to look at the victims of rape as one of the major forms of war crime activity.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, obviously there are no women involved in any of the peace talks going on. It's kind of like it's just put over there on the side, almost closing their eyes to it.
There are no negotiators who are women.
Yeah.
There are no members of the War Crimes Commission who are women. There are no leading figures, except, of course, for Mrs. Ogata, the High Commissioner for Refugees. And she is really quite concerned and quite sympathetic. But if you look at the most important issue in addressing this problem in the short term, the issue of accountability and of holding and having trials and a war crimes tribunal that will both bring about justice and also perhaps have a deterrent effect, it seems at the top of the list. This has not been addressed in the peace talks. It has been addressed by the Security Council and by Boutros-Ghali in setting up a mechanism. But one of our great concerns is there are many rumors that there will be an amnesty for all parties. And of course, under the Geneva Conventions, there can be no amnesty for perpetrators of grave breaches. There can only be an amnesty if you fought and did nothing.
Well, that's not the case here, and unfortunately our worst suspicions were confirmed by this report. Felice and Charlotte, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
16 minutes after, advice for the new budget director from a guy who's been there when Good Morning America continues.
Do you know what may be the most abused substance in America? Food. That's why we're always dieting. Yet food isn't the problem. It's how we think about food. Now Nutrisystem can help you create a whole new relationship with food. With our new 12-week turnaround, you lose up to 24 pounds, learn to crave good things, and give your body what it really wants, respect.
The new 12-week turnaround is $29.
What was Bill Clinton really like during his school days at Oxford? We'll talk with a classmate in our next half hour.
19 minutes past the hour. You know, the cabinet official who always seems to draw the most fire in just about any administration is the director of the Office of Management and Budget, the guy in charge of crunching the government's budget numbers. The confirmation hearings start today for the president-elect's choice for OMB director, the California Congressman Leon Panetta. We wanted to get a sense of what it's like in the OMB hot seat, so joining us now is David Stockman, who managed the budget books during the Reagan administration, 1981 to 85. And while in office, certainly drew his share of friendly and sometimes not so friendly fire. Good to have you back with us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. First of all, your assessment of Mr. Panetta. Going to be
well,
a good man
I think
for
he's
this?
supremely qualified for the job. He has spent 10, 15 years in the trenches. He knows the budget intimately. He's chairman of the budget committee. He's a realist politically. He's a consensus builder. He's really the best choice for the job of anybody I can think of in the country. So that's a real leg up for the administration.
When you say realist, you mean the kind of guy who looks at the figures the way they are and knows that some action that may not be politically palatable has to be taken?
Over the last 10 years, a high proportion of Congress has just become kind of inured to the problem. It's always been here. There's nothing we can do about it. Life has to go on. I think Panetta's kept the faith. He realizes this can't go on. These budget deficits have now become monstrous in proportion. They have to be faced sooner or later, and I think for that reason, there'll be a force, powerful force in the administration, keeping their eye on the ball.
So you don't expect him to have any trouble with confirmation?
None whatsoever.
Now, you talk about monstrous deficits right now, and we're hearing this whole controversy about whether the Clinton people should have been aware of what was coming from the Bush people in terms of the projections. Did the Bush people cook the books a bit?
I don't think so. It's very difficult to project an economy that's $6 trillion big, a budget that's $1.5 trillion in size. So we're arguing whether it's 20 or 50 or 60 billion one way or another. I think that isn't the problem. That's to miss the point. The real problem is that we're now heading into the 1990s. We still have a budget deficit that's 5% of GNP. It's $350 billion as far as the eye can see, to update my old statement. So this is what needs to be focused on, not the last 25 billion. That's an area of spurious accuracy. The fundamental problem is we can't keep consuming our savings to that magnitude and expect to be competitive, to expect to have a growing economy, a prosperous society.
And apparently we can't expect a tax cut right now, because from what we heard over the weekend, Democratic leaders of Congress are saying right now it doesn't look like this is the time to make good on Mr. Clinton's middle-class tax cut plans.
Well, I think that's right, and that's part of the reality therapy that's been setting in since the election. I would give Clinton good marks on that score. Some of this, of course, was theatrics, but he really does indicate that he wants to learn, he wants to face the problem. In fact, he gives evidence of being the first president in 10 years that isn't hearing impaired when it comes to facing the basic fiscal facts of life in the country.
Any personal experience with presidents who might have been hearing impaired towards the necessities?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious from the record. We have $3 trillion worth of national debt today that we're laboring to service. And we had a couple of presidents in the last decade who simply didn't want to face the facts.
You know, in terms of facing the facts, too, one might argue, and it has been argued by some, that unless you cut the entitlement programs, you're never going to deal with this at all. Do you think that this president, elected with that kind of middle-class mandate, supposedly, has the authority or the political will to go in and do that?
Well, I think that's right. He made two promises. One he can keep, one he can't. The promise that he would make America fairer by taxing the rich or their fair share, he can keep. He ought to do that immediately, get it over with, raise the top rate, put on the surtax, even get a decent mansion tax in this country. You know, it's ridiculous that we can deduct $1 million a year worth of interest on a mortgage. So you ought to get that out of the way.
We have to cut it
promise
there.
He can't keep is to protect.
And how do you get people started on that road?
Well, I think it's really important for people to begin to start writing down what they spend money on, because most people can't identify where about 20, 30, 40% of their income is going. So what we did was we started to write it down in a little spiral notebook that would fit into a pocketbook or a pocket, and we just wrote everything down. At the end of the month, we sat down, looked through it, and decided what we could give up. And after doing this for about 3 to 4 months, we had radically change the way we're spending money.
Now, some of the savings you talk about in the book represent about 50 cents worth of savings per week. Isn't it going to be tough for you to convince people that over a long period of time, those 50 cents a week really add up?
The thing to remember is that, you know, there's only a few ways that you can save a huge amount of money doing one thing, like buying a car. The thing to remember is that you wash your hair every day, you brush your teeth every day, you do things every day. And those small savings compound up over the course of the year. So throughout the course of the month, you're making thousands of decisions about how you save money and use things. So the idea that people need to remember is that little things do add up.
You brought some things along that prove that point this morning. Show us how you save money here.
Okay. Well, most people, when they buy something new, they're basically paying for newness. Now, for example, here are two sweaters that belong to one of my sons.
Right.
One of them was given to him, and one of them came from a yard sale. So one of them cost $10 to $15 new, and the second one cost about 50 cents.
You're not going to ask me to guess which one is which. Boy, is this the newer one here?
This is the one that came from the yard sale.
Really? It
it's
looks a lot
actually
better
the
than
better
the newer
looking
one.
sweater. So, so people need to realize that if they wash something about 10 times, it's going to look like what they could buy at a yard sale.
Good way to go. The charcoal, what's that all about?
Okay, this is an inexpensive charcoal lighter that you can make. You can buy these for about $15 to $20, so you don't need to use charcoal fluid. But instead, you can also use a coffee can, take the top, bottom off, punch these little holes in the bottom, put newspaper inside of it, put 10 or 12 charcoal briquettes, light the paper, set it in your charcoal grill, and by the time the paper is finished burning, the coals are going great.
So what you're really saving on money is the actual...
You save on charcoal lighter fluid, and you also save, because you don't have to buy one of these, you can make one of these very easily.
All right, and the mask?
In my never-ending quest for ways to reuse dryer lint, I actually finally found a good use for it. This mask
you're kidding.
This mask is made out of dryer lint mache. Okay, it's basically water, flour, you cook it up in a pot with a little bit of dryer lint, and it makes it actually a nicer mache than paper mache. Yes, and it's made out of a piece of cardboard box and dryer lint mache and some paint I had around the house. I mixed the right color to make the Frankenstein mask.
A lot cheaper than going to the store to buy a Halloween mask.
Absolutely, I might spend $15.
And the streamers and lunch bucket, is that all we've got time for?
Yeah, okay, these are some bike streamers that I made out of a paper clip, some plastic bag, and some masking tape. My children love them.
Great.
And this last item here I'm showing is how to refurbish a lunchbox. The stickers on lunchboxes, the big stickers, wash off. They look pretty cruddy after a while. And I buy these lunchboxes for about 50 cents at a yard sale. I get a magazine picture. I got a nice dinosaur picture in this one, cover it with contact paper, and a sticker like this will last about a year.
Amy Decision, nice to see you, as always. Thanks for your help this morning.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. Harry?
I'm ready. 24 before the hour. Next, robots in surgery. Tomorrow happens today with big advancements in hip replacements.
This morning's MoneyWise segment was sponsored by Visa Gold. It's everywhere you want to be.
Both Visa and American Express Gold cards can get you to England for the golf vacation of your life.
Charlie, how did your yank do? Well, we're up on the 9th, see, and he wants to be up in 2, so he puts everything he's got into the shop, including his new graphite driver.
But should you have a stroke of bad luck, only Visa Gold can get you back on course. Because Cape Cornwall's only pro shop doesn't take American Express.
Keep a grip on it.
Visa Gold. It's everywhere you want to be.
If you're paying annual fees on your IRA, if you buy mutual funds and pay loads of fees, we have an investment breakthrough for you. Now only Schwab gives you the lifetime guaranteed no annual fee IRA and no-load mutual funds from leading fund companies. Only Schwab gives you the single best way to buy mutual funds for your retirement. So if you're still paying transaction fees or loads,
maybe it's time to come to Schwab.
Is your cold medicine right or wrong? Got a cold? One dose of Actifed will get you